Meant to Be is the 4th episode of the 5th season of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is directed by Gary Halvorson and Michael Zinberg, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's a good episode in itself, but I do feel like I'm getting a little tired of Robert and Amy being on again, off again, on again, off again. It's worse than Ross and Rachel, and not that I have anything wrong with Ross and Rachel, I really enjoy how that was executed, but this one seems to be dragging on a little too much. So in general, the episode is okay, but I don't love it. Starts off over at Frank and Marie's house. Ray, Robert, and Frank are there, and we establish that Robert is still basically, I was going to say in love with, maybe that's too strong a word, but he's still thinking about Stefania. He's still in love with Amy, and he's been talking to Joanne. I do like the fact that we get to pick that up again, because we didn't really get that much information at the end of the previous season and what he did there. So I like that they are establishing what happened with that. And Frank suggests the right one is the one who will take care of him, which I don't completely disagree with. I don't think it's the best way to determine which woman to choose. It should be the person who makes you feel the best and who will fit in best with your own lifestyle and interests and what you hope for the future. But having somebody who you'd want to take care of you, and that you want that nurturing, caring, loving relationship, it's a two-way street, of course, I think it is not the worst suggestion. And Robert realises that that's Amy, which I was pleased about. I do think that's the right decision. And he says that he's going to tell her about Stefania and Joanne. So there are no secrets. They can have a long, happy, healthy life together without any deceit. And there's a suggestion that maybe that's not the best idea, but Robert thinks this is the right way to do things. We're in a restaurant, and it doesn't get off to the best of starts as Robert burns himself on a candle. And he's talking to Amy about their relationship, and he keeps saying that they're meant to be. And he then mentions Joanne. And Amy gets understandably upset, because how can somebody sit there and say, you're meant to be together, while he's been talking with his ex-wife in a potentially romantic way? So I don't think Amy overreacted. I think she was right to feel the way she did. And she asks if there's anything else he wants to tell her, and he doesn't mention Stefania. And it was very clear what was going to happen next. I wasn't sure exactly how it would play out. I couldn't remember this episode very well at all. It's been a long time since I saw it. And it definitely worked in a way that I could see coming, but it was still very effective, because we're over with Debra and Ray. Amy comes over, really annoyed about Robert, of course, and Debra was aware, because of Ray, that Robert was going to tell her these things, and she said to Amy, just because he was on vacation, that was no excuse. And Amy thought Robert went on vacation with Joanne, and Debra confirmed, no, it's Stefania. And then she realises Robert had never mentioned Stefania. So I kind of knew that somebody was going to mention Stefania, because Robert hadn't. And it played out really, really well. And it just so happens that Robert comes over at that moment, and Amy stands on the sofa to slap him twice. And it seems like their relationship is done. And this scene kind of dragged on a little bit after that point, and Robert said Debra should be apologising to him for saying what she said, even though I don't necessarily agree with that, because at the end of the day, Robert is the one who has made a lot of very bad decisions recently. And the scene, as I said, it slowed down, but then it picked back up again when Marie came over and started hitting Robert with a pillow, because Amy was going to give her more grandchildren, and if the relationship's over, that's not going to happen. And then it took a direction I really wasn't expecting, and I really don't agree with it. It's unusual for me to disagree with Robert's actions, because usually he's usually quite neutral. He doesn't really have really any kind of bad behaviour. He doesn't really make a lot of big decisions to then question those decisions. But in this season so far, he's not done a lot of great things. And he goes to the restaurant, and I thought, okay, he's meeting with Amy again to talk things out. And then, that's my cat, Joanne walks in. And honestly, the way it played out, I was waiting for it to be a dream. Because he was saying things that he said to Amy about how they're meant to be, and Joanne was lapping it all up. And I thought, this seems so ludicrous. I'm waiting for Robert to wake up and for him to realise that that was never going to work. And it never happened. This was real. This was what was happening. And then we find out that, well, they're going to have their relationship. Robert suggests they go see a movie or play miniature golf, and Joanne starts laughing at him. And it turns out she just wants him for sex. She has no interest in an actual relationship beyond the physical. And much to Robert's credit, even though it's very clear Robert is lonely and he's desperate for a connection with anybody, he said no, that's not what he wants. And I love the fact that he shouted out in the restaurant that Robert is not there just for a booty call. And he said it with such pride, and when everybody stared at him, he didn't back down. And I thought that was great. Well done, Robert. He may have made a lot of bad decisions, but he's not doing something that goes against what he wants or what he believes in. And I respect that. And we end with him, well, trying to phone Amy. She keeps hanging up on him. And then he tries to phone Stefania. And it's very clear that he's lost and desperate for some kind of connection. He's clearly feeling very lonely. But I don't agree with him just jumping from woman to woman until one of them latches onto him. Again, at least he rejected Joanne when she was being inappropriate, and I really applaud him for that, but he's still not going about it the right way. And as I said, I do feel like they're dragging out Robert and Amy a little bit too much. It just seems to be going on and on, back and forth, and it's just a little bit annoying. I've just randomly remembered the episode quite a while ago where they're down in the basement when Robert is staying in Ray's basement, and, well, Amy's wearing Robert's trousers. I'll say no more than that, but that was probably one of my favourite highlights, Amy and Robert-based highlights. So I can't remember exactly what happens next. I can remember some episodes way off into the future, but I can't remember what happens immediately after this, so I'm keen to find out, which sounds a bit contradictory if I'm saying I'm kind of fed up with them dragging it out. So it's not terrible, but I just think maybe they could have quickened this up a little bit. I don't know. We'll see what happens next. I'm looking forward to finding out. And for now, I'm pleased to say that Meant to Be it's not a bad episode. Generally, it's a pretty decent episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.